I do not make things up. This is what I saw when I was a boy. I was only 12 years old. It is many years ago now, but I remember it the same as if it was yesterday. Some things you do not forget. It was summer, and my father took me fishing on the Rhine River. We did this many times. He was a quiet man, a worker at the factory in town, and fishing was his peace. For me, it was adventure. We had an old wooden boat, small, but it held us fine. My father always said the Rhine gives us quiet, if we respect it. We packed simple things: 2 rods, a tin box for hooks and weights, a jar with worms that I had dug from the garden that morning myself. My mother had made us sandwiches, cheese and sausage, wrapped in wax paper. It's these little details that I remember very vividly, and I have a hard time forgetting, let alone the things that we saw that day. Everything about that day is etched into my mind. My father had 2 bottles of beer, I remember. I had water with lemon. We pushed the boat from the bank and drifted into the slow water near the trees. It was all very normal. The air smelled of river and pine. Sometimes you could hear voices too, people walking on the far side, but far away, not close. For us, this was nothing strange. A father and son on the river on a quiet evening. Many families did the same. I never thought it would be any different this night. It was supposed to be the same as always. Calm water, waiting for fish, eating sandwiches, then rowing home when the stars came out. That is what I believed. The evening stayed quiet for a time, the way it always did. I watched my line drift, I ate 1 sandwich, and my father smoked his cigarette slow. He always did this when we fished. The sun was lowering and everything looked peaceful. But then all of a sudden it began to feel very different than any other time we'd been out there fishing. I remember it started with the trees across the river. The shadows there looked heavy, thick, like something was hiding in them. I told myself it was just the way the light fell, but I noticed it, and I know my father did too. He squinted at the far bank longer than normal. Then the birds lifted. River birds that usually sat calm on the water suddenly rose together, wings beating, their cries sharp. They flew downriver and did not come back. Something had definitely spooked them. And the silence after that was heavy. Too heavy. I shifted on the bench of the boat, uneasy. My father put his cigarette out in the water and leaned in a little forward. He said very softly, "It feels like we're being watched." He didn't look at me when he said it. He kept his eyes on the dark tree line across the river. I wanted to laugh, but I could not bring myself to. He was right. I felt it too. The sensation of something watching you. The skin prickled on my arms and my neck. It was like I was cold, though the air was still warm. The kind of feeling you get when someone stands behind you. And then, even across the river, the smell came. It was faint at first. Strong musk, like a dog, but heavier and thicker. I had grown up around hunting dogs. I knew that smell well. But this was different. It was stronger, like something larger and wilder. It made the back of my throat tight. I whispered, "Papa, what is that?" But he did not answer me. He just put his hand on the oar and waited, staring into the trees. I looked where my father stared. At first I saw nothing, only the dark trees and the reeds bending by the water. Then I noticed movement, long to the ground. Something was there, crouching on all fours on the edge where the forest touched the river. My first thought was wild boar. We saw them sometimes near the water. They come out to drink or to cool in the mud, but this was far bigger. Broader in the shoulders, longer in the legs. Too long. This is the thing that my father had been watching. I leaned forward, trying to see better. For a moment I thought maybe it was a very large dog. Some farmers keep mastiffs, shepherd dogs, but the shape was wrong for these animals too. The back was sloped, the neck too long. Then its head turned. I saw the muzzle clear in profile. Long, sharp, very canine, but unlike any canine that I had ever witnessed. My stomach dropped. The eyes caught what was left of the sun, shining back at us like glass, glowing a greenish color against the dark trees. It didn't move like any animal I knew either. It shifted slowly, as if it had all the time in the world. And then with a motion that made my chest go cold, it rose to 2 legs. First it was on its knees, then higher and higher still, until it was standing upright. Not like a man. Not like a wolf, but something in between. The air went heavy in my lungs. I grabbed the side of the boat without thinking. My father's hand was already tighter on the oar, and his voice came low, almost a growl of his own. That is no dog. It stood for a moment, tall against the trees, and then it dropped back down, quick and smooth onto all fours. My father and I did not speak, we only watched this creature. The thing began to move along the bank step by step, keeping itself level with our boat. We drifted slow in the current, and it matched us. Never closer, never farther, like it knew the speed of the water. Sometimes it ran low, its back sloping like a wolf or a hyena, shoulders rolling heavy. Then the ground changed, roots and stone came, and it rose on two legs, stepping carefully like a man climbing over them. Back and forth it went, beast then man, then beast again. Every time it stood upright, my chest froze. It was too wrong to see. Once there was a loud splash. I had feared that it leapt at us, but no, it had stepped into the shallow edge, water breaking around its legs as it continued to pace us. There were other times where cracks would echo through the air, like wood snapping, and then stone rolled and splashed into the river. Whatever it threw or kicked, I don't know, but it made my blood hammer. This thing was toying with us. My father gripped the oar tight in both hands now. His knuckles were white. He leaned toward me, lips close to my ears, and whispered, "Stay still. Be quiet." But I knew at this point it was no use. That thing already knew where we were, and it was hunting us in a way that no man can be hunted. This thing was following our boat, and we had no way to escape. So we just drifted, the river carrying us, the thing continuing to pace us step for step. It was waiting for us to make a mistake, I think. We floated this way for what felt like forever, though it could not have been more than a few minutes. The river was slow, carrying us down, and every step we drifted, it drifted too. Always there, always watching. I leaned close to my father and whispered, "Should we row to shore?" Even as I asked, I knew it was a mistake. This creature was never far from us, so it was close to the landing places. There were narrow spots in the reeds where a boat could touch land, but each time one came into sight, I saw it move closer, stepping towards the water's edge, waiting, almost as if this thing was intelligent enough to anticipate that we were trying to dock. My father shook his head and said, "No, not here. It waits for us." I'd never heard his voice so full of fear. I thought maybe we could row out into the middle of the river. There the water was wide, and it felt sure that this thing could not follow. My father looked at the current and muttered, "Too strong. The boat is not made for that." He was right. Our little wooden boat was good for calm edges, not for deep rushing water. And the thought of going on the other side and docking was not a possibility. It was far away from any town or vehicle. If we went over to that side of the river, we would be stranded, with no way of getting home. We sat trapped between choices. The land was not safe, the middle was too dangerous, and all the while the creature paced, never turning away, never showing fear, only interest, and possibly a hunger. Its head turned towards us, following our boat as if we were the only thing in the world that mattered to it. I remember the arms were so long. This thing moved with the grace of a jungle cat, but it was definitely not anything that this earth had ever seen. My own arms were standing up straight, stiff as a board, trying to figure out what it was that we could do. The hairs on my arms stood even stiffer than that. My father's jaw was set hard, and I could hear him breathing through his nose, steady but heavy. I didn't ask him again what to do. I knew he didn't have an answer. The longer this thing walked with us, the stronger the feeling grew in my chest that this was not by chance. This wanted us. At last, my father made the choice. He looked at me once hard and whispered, "We go now, fast." He pushed the oar deep and began to row, sudden and strong. The boat jerked, wood creaking under the strain. I grabbed my own oar and pulled too, though my arms felt weak with fear. The boat cut across the water toward the opposite bank. Every stroke sounded too loud, splashing and groaning, but we did not stop. My father's face was set, sweat shining on his forehead. The thing noticed. It came faster now, no longer slow and patient. It dropped to all fours and ran along the bank, kicking up dirt under its paws. When the bank broke down low, it stepped straight into the river. I saw water splash high around its thighs. It did not even flinch at the cold. For a moment I thought it would come to us, swim straight toward the boat, capsize it, and take us. My chest turned to ice, but it stopped. It stood there, half in the water, watching, its eyes glowing across the distance. It paced a few more steps in the shallows, as if testing to see how far it could go. Then it only watched as we rowed further and further into the current. We reached a dock downstream, not the one where we had put in. We didn't care, though. My father threw the rope at the post, but did not tie it. We leapt out, feet stumbling on the boards, and ran onto the land. Behind us, the boat drifted loose. There was a man near the dock, an old fisherman with his own gear. He had seen us coming fast. He pointed across the river, eyes wide. I turned and will never forget it. The creature stood still there in the water, chest rising heavy, arms hanging low, staring at us. Even from that distance, I knew that it had watched us. From that distance, it still looked too tall and too strong. The man crossed himself and muttered in German, "Wolfman." He gave us a ride in his truck back to where our own car was parked. None of us spoke much on that drive. The river slipped away behind us, but I felt those eyes on the back of my neck. When we came home that night, the house felt different. My mother was still awake, waiting for us in the kitchen. She looked at our faces first, not the empty hands, and she knew that something was wrong. We sat at the table, still damp from the river, still shaking. She asked what had happened, but my father only shook his head and said nothing. We were tired. I tried to speak, to tell her about the thing in the trees, but he gave me a look that stopped the words in my throat. His eyes were hard, and I understood. He would not allow it to be spoken. Not that night. But still, my mother pressed him, so he did end up telling the entire story about what happened to us that evening. She sat there listening, not making a noise, taking in the fear on our faces. When she said one word, it stopped me cold. She said it like an old word, one she had heard before as a little girl. She said, "Wolf people." My father stood, pushed his chair in, and told her sharply, "No." And that was the end of it. I went to bed that night at my father's insistence, but sleep did not come easy. When I closed my eyes, I heard the river splashing against heavy legs. I could smell the musk, wet and sharp. I saw eyes glowing in the dark. For many nights after, I woke sweating, my ears ringing with a growl that might have been a bad memory or something else. Now, years have passed. I grew, worked, lived, had a family, but I never forgot. Once as a man, I went back to that part of the Rhine. I told myself it was for closure, to see if visiting that part of the river could make me forget all about it. I stood on the same bank where we had fished. The water looked the same, even the trees looked the same, but I could not bring myself to stay long, even in the daylight, with people around, because I felt it. That fear, the weight that I had carried that day, the presence of that thing. To me, it felt like the forest was still watching me. I left and have not returned again. Some things are just not meant for us. I was 17 then, just a boy really, but I thought I was grown. We lived in a small town in Germany. Quiet place, surrounded by fields and forest. In summer, when the evenings were warm and long, we sometimes snuck out at night. It was nothing clever, just boys being stupid. There were 3 of us that night: Jonas, Stefan, and me. Later, Lucas came too, but he was late. We carried cheap beer we had bought from the kiosk, and Stefan had some cigarettes that he stole from his older brother. We felt very bold, like men, though we were not. We went into the forest, of course. Always the forest. It was close, dark, and private. Our parents told us not to go in there at night, which only made us want it more. Looking back now, I say it plain. We were young and stupid. We thought the worst we could find were wild animals or a farmer angry about trespassing. We didn't believe in monsters. This was before the night Stefan came back pale as chalk and told us what he saw. We walked deeper into the woods that night, until we found a small clearing. It was one that we'd thought about using before, but had never walked all the way out to. It was farther from the path than we were used to. far enough that no one from the village could see us, even if they came looking. We set the beer down, opened the first cans, and laughed too loudly. Everything was a joke then. Every word felt big, every laugh felt wild, like we were kings of the forest. It had rained 2 days before. It was a freak storm, nothing that we were used to, especially during those months. So the ground was soft, our shoes sinking a little into the moss. Crickets sang around us, sharp and steady, like a chorus for our stupid songs and our shouting. Jonas found some dry sticks and started a fire, though he was no good at it. In the end, it got lit, but it was small and weak. Just an orange glow, really. Nothing strong at all. It gave us more smoke than warmth, actually. And definitely not a lot of light. Still, it was enough to make us feel proud, like we had made something of our own. We sat around it, passing beer, trying cigarettes, coughing and spitting, pretending it was fun. We told stories about girls we liked, about teachers we hated, about nothing important at all. The forest felt big around us, but we ignored it. We were boys having fun. We were cocky, careless, and full of ourselves. We thought the dark was ours. But all of that changed fast. One moment we were laughing. The next, it felt like someone turned the forest off. The crickets that had been so loud just stopped. All of them. The night went heavy, like a blanket over our ears. We sat quiet at first, not even noticing. Then Jonas frowned and said, "Nothing is making any noise." I realized he was right. There was nothing. No birds, no insects, no sounds but the fire popping. Then came the first noise. Heavy, like something big moving between the trees. A branch cracked, loud and sharp. We all turned our heads at once. My chest went tight. Jonas gave a quick laugh. It was too quick. He said, "A boar. It has to be. A fat one, too." He lifted his can like he was toasting to it, but his eyes weren't laughing. Lucas shook his head. He had just arrived not long before, and he spoke softer. "No boar," he said. "It's the forest man." He gave a half smile when he said it, like he wanted it to be a joke, but to me it didn't sound like one. We all laughed anyway, because that's what boys do. We laughed and called him stupid, and Jonas threw a stick at him, but the sounds in the woods did not laugh with us. The silence after that grew deeper, and I felt it inside of me. This uneasiness. The kind that makes you want to pack up and go, even if you don't want to admit it yet. After a while, Stefan stood up, brushing dirt from his jeans, and said that he had to pee. He held his beer can in one hand, gave us a toast, and said, "Be right back." None of us thought much about it. It was normal. Boys that drank had to go to the bathroom. He stepped into the trees, the glow of the fire fading off his shoulders until he was gone in the dark. We kept talking for a bit, but the minutes stretched. 5, maybe 6, and then 7, 8 minutes, almost 10. Too long. Jonas finally said, "Where's he gone now?" He called out, his voice louder than it needed to be. "Stefan, hey, don't get lost out there." From the woods came a muffled sound, like an answer. We could not hear words, only that his voice sounded far away. Jonas laughed, but it was short. "He's messing with us," he said. We waited. Another minute. 2. Nothing. The forest was too quiet again. No more voice, no footsteps, no rustle. I remember staring into the black between the trees and feeling my stomach drop. Something was wrong. At last, we heard movement. Branches shifting, footsteps coming closer. Stefan pushed out of the dark and into the weak glow of the fire. Right away, I saw that something was very wrong with him. His face was pale, his forehead wet with sweat, even though the night was cool. He held his beer, but he didn't drink from it, and he was shaking. Jonas smirked and called out, "What happened, eh? You see a deer and fall in love?" Lucas laughed too, but it was softer, like he was waiting for Stefan to answer. Stefan didn't laugh. He shook his head, eyes darting towards the trees. His voice came rough and trembling. "No, not a deer, not an animal." He swallowed hard, and then he said the words I can still hear clean. "It walked like a man." The fire cracked. None of us spoke right away. We stared at him, waiting for more of an explanation. But honestly, I think he was in shock. And finally, Jonas asked, "What do you mean?" needing more answers from our friend. Stefan lifted his free hand, trying to show with fingers. It was big, bent forward but standing, hair all over, and the face, a wolf face, yellow eyes. He was talking quickly, not even in complete sentences. He was saying words that sounded broken, like his brain couldn't catch up with his mouth. Jonas laughed again, but it was forced and thin, and said that he was already drunk. Stefan shook his head harder. No, I know what I saw. It was not a man, it was not an animal. He repeated it like he needed us to believe him, like saying it twice would make it more true. He stood there, staring at the ground. I remember thinking then that I'd never seen him look so scared. The three of us tried to laugh more, trying to make the night easy. Jonas said Stefan was playing with us, that he'd seen a shadow and got frightened. We pushed the worry away with jokes. That's what boys do. Laugh to hide the tremble. But then what we heard made all of us stop laughing. It made Stefan almost pass out. He was crying. I knew then that this was no joke. He was a good actor, yes, but even he couldn't make tears come when they shouldn't. The branches cracked loose, loud like a pistol. We all shut up at once. Someone, maybe Jonas, turned on a flashlight and swept the beam across the trees. The light hit trunks, leaves, and then moved. A shape, gone, another shape. Nothing clear, just dark limbs moving. The beam showed places where the light did not want to stay. The footsteps came next. Heavy, not like a small fox or a deer. These were not light. They sounded like someone pacing on thick boots, and then like something long and padded walking. The sound moved around the clearing, here and then there, like we were in the center of a circle. My throat went dry. Lucas swore under his breath. Jonas's bravado melted. The joke stopped. Stefan put his hand over his mouth and whispered so softly I almost didn't hear him. He said, "It followed me back." He looked at the trees like they might answer him. His eyes were wide and empty. He could not tell more. He only repeated, "It followed me. It followed me. We must leave." And his voice was small. We shone the flashlight again, faster and harder. For a moment the beam caught something watching us between two trunks. Two yellow points that blinked and were gone. But too high to be any animal that we knew. Much too high to even be a man. The beam found clawed marks on low branches and then nothing. All around us, the forest kept moving, patient and slow, and we felt as if we stood inside something that had been waiting for years. All of our bravado cracked all at once. Nobody said, "Let's go," but we all felt it. Jonas stood first, tossing his can into the fire. Lucas grabbed his jacket, but nothing else. Stefan was already moving towards the path, begging us to follow him, saying that whatever was out there could kill us all very easily. I looked back once at the bottles and cigarettes on the ground, still waiting in the dirt, but none of us touched them. We left everything. We ran. The small path that felt friendly in the daylight turned into a tunnel of black trees and roots grabbing our feet in the dark. My lungs burned, but fear pushed me harder than my legs wanted. Branches were whipping at all of us. Behind us the sound came again, though. Heavy steps, snapping wood, always close but never catching, and that made us move faster. We no longer cared about any injuries that the branches would cause. We believed what our friend had seen. There was something out there that was hunting us. Something that didn't chase like an animal. Not fast at all. It paced us, following closely but never showing itself. Every time we slowed, so did it. Every time we stumbled, it came a little bit nearer. We never saw it clear, only felt it move. The weight of it pressing in from the dark. Jonas shouted once, "Don't stop!" and none of us did. After that, Stefan didn't speak at all, only ran with his head down, his breath sharp and fast. I could hear that he was still crying as we ran. Then at last the trees opened. We burst onto the road, under the glow of the street lamps. The pavement was shining pale under the light. We stopped there, bent over, pulling air into our lungs, trying to recuperate, but still scared that that thing was following us, so we didn't stay too long. For now the sound was gone. There were no steps, no breaking branches, nothing. It sounded as if the forest behind us stood silent as stone. We did not go back for the beer. We ended up at Jonas's house, too afraid to go to each other's own home. His parents were asleep, so we crept into the basement with our blankets. None of us spoke much. Everything was gone, only replaced by fear. There was no bravery inside of us anymore, and in its place was silence, sour and heavy. We lay there with wide eyes, listening for sounds outside, making sure that that thing did not follow us back. To me, it sounded like every creak of the old house made all of us flinch. Nobody slept well that night, especially Stefan. The next day, we did manage to go back, though none of us wanted to. Curiosity pulled us, and maybe pride too. We wanted proof it was not only fear. The clearing looked the same at first. Black ashes where our fire had been. Empty space where we had sat. But the beer cans were scattered. Not where we had left them. One lay crushed flat, like it was stepped on by something too heavy. On a tree near the edge, fresh marks cut deep into the bark. High up, higher than any of us could reach. Long, curved scratches, up towards where we had seen the eye shine. Stefan stood staring at them a long time, then shook his head. He never spoke about that night again, not once. If we tried to tease him, he would walk away. If we pressed, he only said, "Forget it," and he meant it. I did not forget. None of us did. We thought we were tough, but the night taught me different. The forest does not belong to us, especially at night. It keeps its own things, and some of them walk like a man.